Greetings, welcome back to our study on becoming God's people. This week we are looking at Leviticus chapter 4 in my reflection. At least that's where I'm going to go, talking about the purification offering and what that means and how we can learn and grow from studying it. But before we get there, I do feel like I should kind of apologize almost for going into Leviticus for so long again and again and again. I feel, it's just bad. Greetings. Welcome back to our study on becoming God's people. This week we are looking at Leviticus. My reflection for the week is on Leviticus chapter 4. I know this is not everybody's favorite book, but bear with me and I think I can help to make it something that probably enjoy a little bit more. Last week we looked at Leviticus chapter 1 and talked a little bit just about the introduction to Leviticus and what the book is trying to accomplish and how it um, it sets us up for living with God. And this week I want to focus a little bit on some of the different types of offerings or sacrifices that are brought to the tabernacle and what is being described. So in Leviticus 1, the first thing right off the bat is the whole burnt offering, the Holocaust, which we use to describe the events of Nazi Germany in World War II and how they impacted the Jewish community and the murder of millions of people. And the idea is that that event was a an offering similar to what we have in Leviticus 1, where the individuals killed represented something similar to the animals killed in this for this offering. So the basic premise is that the whole burnt offering, unlike all of the Israelite counterparts, the offering was not about providing food for the god. So if you look at the Canaanite religions or Egyptian religions or Mesopotamian, all of these cultures that surrounded Israel, all of them had this idea that you provided food for the god. You provided in some way something for the god to eat. And you did it by butchering the animal and then offering it on the altar and burning it completely. That was the source of food for the deity. We don't see that in Israelite culture. In fact, we see the opposite. Food is ceremonially kept away from the actual the tent that is considered God's dwelling place. The only food that is inside of that is the bread of the presence, and that bread is eaten by the priests, and we'll talk about this more later. But the idea is that God does not need food from humanity, so we never bring food for God. Rather, food is set out by God, and who gets to eat that? The priests. The priests at the end of the week eat the bread it's a symbol of God providing humanity with food rather than humanity providing God with food. It's the exact opposite of what everybody else around the Israelites would have believed. So, what is the point of the whole burnt offering if it's not for food? It is designed to show it's a sacrifice, it's giving up. It's designed to show that the person is so uh, concerned with meeting God and they so want God's presence in their lives that they give up this animal to show as a symbol, as a sign to show their need to commune with God. And God comes down in the language of the Bible. God comes to meet them. It is more of a symbolic act. It is done for other sacrifices. It is done when a person needs to talk or commune with God. maybe not so much talk with, but they want God's presence in a very real way to surround them at that moment. So they'll offer the whole burnt offering, and these very often would have been offered at the start and end of each day as a way of recalling or asking for God's presence when the sun changes. So at the start of the day, at the sunrise, and then at the sunset, it's a way of reminding ourselves that as the time changes, we still need God's presence. Then the next sacrifice up after that is the sacrifice of grain, cereal. These grain offerings were traditionally around in the communities around Israel. Um, these grain offerings were again offered to the god as food. They were burned up as food, and they were the offering that a poor person could offer. It was just you bring in a certain measure of grain, and you could burn, or you could sacrifice without having to have animals. So that was a huge thing for the poor in these ancient cultures, to be able to participate in the worship of the deity. But this is again transformed here. The grain offering for Israel was not about feeding God. A token portion is taken out. Again, this is a reminder that it is for God's presence that you are coming here. This token portion is given back to God, and the rest is given to the priest. And we notice that there are two different kinds of grain offering, one with frankincense, one without. The idea of adding the frankincense was, again, a luxury, a sweet smell. It was something to make it more pleasant, the offering more pleasant. It's again a sign of how much you are giving back to God. But then frankincense was also expensive, so to have an offering where you didn't have to give frankincense allowed the poor to participate fully in the worship. Otherwise, if frankincense was mandatory for this grain offering, many in Israel would not have been able to participate because they would not have had the money for the frankincense, even if they had the grain. But this grain offering without frankincense is appropriate, and it opens the door for the poor to participate. It also is a way for the community of Israel to provide extra food for the priests. So we think, why not just go up and dedicate or give food to the priests like alms? But here we have a way of symbolizing that the food that is given to the priest is indeed there, not just out of alms or generosity, but as a tribute and worship to the God that they serve. So this adds another layer of meaning to the sacrifice, to the offering. And again, this whole book is about helping the Israelites to provide meaning for their lives. It's not simply about do's and don'ts and regulations for how to approach God and what makes you righteous and unrighteous. This is about how you approach your daily life and how you think about God in your daily life. So this is an opportunity for the worshiper to give alms to the priest, give a salary even to the priest, while making it part of their worship. And I think that's something that we could learn today. Giving to the church for things that we don't necessarily need to give to the church, but as a way to show that it's worship. It's giving a sign to worship. So that is a big thing. And then we have the Thanksgiving offerings. These are different types of offerings. Again, they are just there to show that the person is rejoicing, that they're thankful for all of the blessings that God gives. They are designed to be just everyday offerings. but they're not mandatory. None of these offerings are mandatory. We're going to get into the offering today that is mandatory, but none of these are. The purification offering is a mandatory offering that God expects from the people, because that is where that is something to purify from sin. That is a recognition that God is good and pure and holy, and we are not, and therefore we have to do something to rectify, to cleanse the area around us so that we are ready for God. And that's where we get into in the reflection. I hope you enjoy it. If you have questions or comments, please send them out to me. I'll try to get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. And until we meet again, God bless.